24 and a half years of my life was mostly state hospitals. It really hurt inside as a human being to have, not to see the outside, not to even get a breath air for a year straight because I had hurt myself. I have borderline 1, borderline axis 2. I have bipolar, masseteritis disease. I don't know if they're saying it the right way, but that's someone who has, you can go to a doctor and you think there's something wrong and you can go and get every test in the world and you still think something's wrong. I cut myself to the point where I thought I made up a story saying that I actually got bit by a dog. No, it wasn't a dog. I had done it to myself. I nicked myself at home with a razor superficial on my wrist, and I was in my morning resource class and my teacher saw it and sent me to the nurse's office where they called the superintendent, called my mom, and they kicked me out of school. When I received this key on December 4th of 2014, it meant the world to me that I'm a normal person in the community and I have my own way of letting myself in and out. In the facilities, you can't do that. You know, going 24 and a half years of my life from August of 1989 to December 4th of 2014 was mostly state hospitals. Being in state hospitals where I did most self-injury to myself more than even outside in residentials and living at home when I was younger. For 1 year, I couldn't even have anything. Like, I was in a CO room where there's no windows. I had a blanket, a sheet, and my pillow. I didn't even have a comfort item for a year. I couldn't even have like a picture of stuffed animal. It's like almost a year until my mom fought for that. You're taking someone who's hurt themselves and telling you can't have your stuff. Get better and then you will. But what kind of inspiration do you have if you can't even have a picture of someone or a card from somebody? They had level systems where if you're by behavior, it goes from like CO 1-to-1 to CO 15-minute checks, and then there's a level start at 1 and goes up to level 4, level 5, where you can have privileges to go off the unit, to go outside to a courtyard, to go on grounds to walk and go to a cafe. And you had to have privileges to do that. You had to have behavior. Like my history is with hurting myself sometimes. I had to show enough stuff for them to go on to give me a privilege with having negative behavior. For example, for 1 whole year in a state place, was on a 1-to-1 for a whole year where I never, ever saw the outside of a gated window, fence-gated window for a year. I never went outside and never saw outside for a year because I had hurt myself. It really hurt inside as a human being to have, not to see the outside, not to even get a breath air for a year straight.
Even though sometimes these illnesses do impact the brain, we have found that people are much more willing to engage in a path to recovery if they feel they've got not only a say in the matter, but skin in the game, so to speak. And we want to meet people where they are. We have found that, sending someone to the hospital and having doctors say you need to do X, Y, and Z doesn't work real well, especially when you consider that for a lot of people with an underlying mental health condition, what they're often lacking is human connection. That alienation tends to drive a lot of these illnesses and certainly make them worse.
I would agree that being treated in your home community is a much healthier response. Being able to be in a neighborhood or community that you grew up in with your church group or your support group, all of that is really important to be a member and a citizen of your community.
I've always wanted an animal of my own. So I had to agree, Goodwill agreed with me, if I had 6 to 8 weeks with no negative behavior, ER for anything negative, that they'd be willing to let me have a cat. And I've had her 2 years, 3 years I've had Emma. And I adopted from the PO in East Hartford, the cat shelter, and I would never give her up. I love her so much. Even though she doesn't jump on me, she loves me and I love her. And that sometimes is what keeps me going, not wanting to pick up a phone to run to a hospital sometimes. Who would take care of her if I wasn't here? It's just like having a human being, it's just having a child. You don't want to walk out on your child. Who's going to take care of your child? She's checking you out more than she checks everybody else, and now she's going to back up. You're okay, Emma. He's not gonna do it. See what it is? They said when I got her, she's not a good proud person. So, my opinion, if someone had listened to me 10 years ago, I might not have done all the damage I did to my body. You know, I maybe not got to the extreme of what I had done to myself. You know, I can't go back and take my scars off my arms or anything. But there's got to be someone who can listen to somebody who's in pain and suffering.
I hear again and again people's horror stories of having been in the quote-unquote locked psych ward. They're trying to do the right thing, and I get that. But no one's ever come back to me and said, I spent 3 weeks in a locked ward, and oh, that was such a great experience. I've heard again and again and again how traumatizing it is and how they didn't get the help that they really needed. So how do we fix that?
Courtyard. If I wasn't because of my sister, Claude, and goodwill of my mom when she was alive, I think I still might be sitting there 7 years later, watching people climb the walls and screaming and going off, you know?
Do you think there are people that do need that institution?
Yes, but I think sometimes people, because someone might do something, doesn't mean they have to be put away for the rest of their life, you know?
People often will think the worst is going to happen, and you know, unfortunately, because of the nature of these illnesses, sometimes the worst does happen. You know, not everyone has a happy ending. I just have to be honest about that. Some families, because of the severity of these illnesses and the suicidal ideation that's very common in different types of mental health conditions, you know, sometimes the person ends up taking their life, which is always a tragedy. But you certainly improve your chances if you're educated and you have the supports and you can be an advocate for your loved one while they struggle to get on a meaningful path to recovery.
September of 2013 was when I was readmitted, and I took myself and looked at myself back again, realizing this is not really what I want to be. I said to myself, I couldn't do that to myself anymore. I tell myself I've been through so much to have what I have now. You know, if I gave up all myself a long time ago, who knows what it would have happened to me. Being in facilities, if I wanted to go take a yogurt, I couldn't do that. You can't just go in the kitchen, get a yogurt and sit and eat it and sit with your feet up. Living in the community, you can go in, I can go in whatever time I want. I'm not a diagnosis, I'm not a number. I'm a human being with real feelings, and a person might take meds and have different issues. But I'm a human being like anybody else. I'm not a label anymore.
Poverty has its own sets of traumas.
Talk to him. There you go. You see how he's slowing down?